Hi there, Stephanie with Boet Burnings. Today I'm going to work on a burning with some lettering and some snowflakes. I'll be using the Walnut Hollow Versa tool with the universal tip again. If you haven't seen my other videos, feel free to check those out. I walk through how I create the designs and get it mocked up to fit the wood, and then how I transfer. I've already transferred this, so I'm actually ready to get burning right away. I'm going to do my best not to smudge the snowflakes as I start the outlining. First I'm going to make sure my tool is nice and hot. I just go on a piece of test wood and it is ready to go. If you've seen any of my other videos, I usually rest my hand. It's actually like a chunk of sander, and it's got like a nice angle to it, so I can actually get it somewhat over the wood with enough room to rest my hand on comfortably. Otherwise my wrist would completely die. So I use that, and then I'm burning with the very tip. So only the very tip of the tool is touching the wood, and I usually end up kind of twirling around as I go. I start with like an outside edge, and I just do the outline so I can get things rolling without smudging the entire piece, and then I go back and fill it in and make touch-ups from there. And I'm doing very small chunks at a time. I'm not making big swoops. I find the smaller I go, the more accurate that I am. So it looks cleaner and there's less to clean up afterwards. I have the tool on as hot as it goes, and I'm not pushing down very hard. Just kind of barely grazing the top. The darker you want it to be, the harder you can push down. If you want it a little lighter, you can also turn down the temp on the tool. Trying to show the angle of the tip on the wood. So now that I've got the outline of the lettering done, I'll go ahead and do the snowflakes. I didn't want to start on the snowflakes because I felt like I would need to rotate so much that it would end up smudging the letters. I know the snowflakes won't end up perfect. It's kind of hard to see the transfer didn't go as smooth as the letters normally go. It's a lot smudged, but we should be able to make it work, and hey, snowflakes aren't completely perfect anyways, so we'll see how we do. Now that I have the outline of everything done, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the letters, and then I'll go through, once I'm all done with that, and clean up all of the edges, including the letters and the snowflakes. So to fill in the letters, I basically just go back and forth really slowly. The slower you go, the darker it will be, and then also the less chance you get of accidentally going too far out of your lines. I'm not making it absolutely perfect right now because I'm going to go back through and clean up all of the lines once I'm done. But I don't want to go too rushed, so like I said, I don't want to go outside of the lines because it's not very easy to erase with wood burning. If you do make a mistake and go outside your lines, sometimes you can kind of compensate for it by just kind of making the whole like letter thicker, but other times I'll go through with a little knife and you can kind of lightly scrape things off, but it still doesn't look that clean when you do that, so try to be careful. Another thing to note, as I'm going back and forth, I'm going with the grain. I'm not going against the grain. It's definitely easier to go with the grain. It looks a lot smoother and you're not fighting against it. I can't remember if I mentioned before, but this is basswood. Basswood is pretty soft, so you do need to be careful. You can gouge into it fairly easily, even just with your fingernail. You can put a dent in it, so you gotta be careful. When we get closer, we can see a lot more of the imperfections, so I'm going to go back in and clean up those lines. So I finished kind of cleaning up the letters. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the snowflakes, and I'm just going to try to make it so the thickness of the lines are even, and just kind of clean things up a little bit. So I went through and tried to clean up my lines, and I had a couple spots where the burner caught onto the grain and got pretty thick. So I'm now going to take my little knife and I'm going to try to clean it up a little bit, try to erase some of my burn. It won't be perfect, but it should still help a little bit. Okay, so I went through and tried to clean everything up a bit, including the snowflakes. So it's about as good as it's going to get. Sometimes I turn into a bit of a perfectionist, but then the more that I mess with it, the more I make it worse. So that's where we leave off. One thing I forgot to mention, sometimes if you're not pressing down the same amount all throughout the fill-in of the letters can be different colors. So one thing I do is I go back through and try to make that all the same darkness. And sometimes if you're pressing down hard, especially if you're doing the edges, a lot of smoke can come up. So I usually try to make sure I'm blowing that away from my eyes. Otherwise that kind of burns. I hope you guys learned a few things in this video. Again, if you want to see how I did the edges, feel free to check out my other video. And same with how I create and transfer the design. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.